Hi, my name is Latrinda Knighton, and I would like to welcome you to Fostering Student Engagement in the Elementary Mathematics Classroom. Dive into Desmos. In today's presentation, we're going to specifically look at Desmos as a tool to promote student engagement. Now, I bet a lot of you have heard of Desmos before, and so you probably heard of it as a calculator that our older students can use for LEAP 2025. Some of you may have friends who teach in secondary levels or even your own personal students, and they've engaged in activities. Well, I'm here to tell you today that Desmos, one, is more than just a calculator, and also that Desmos has something to offer for elementary students as well. So, why do we want to actively engage students? Well, actually, we know that students learn more when they are actively engaged in their education. We know they learn more when they have opportunities to think about and apply what they are learning in a variety of settings. And why would we do that? We know that our students live and learn in a world of new media. They interact with media for approximately 7.5 hours per day. So, traditional methods may not engage all learners. It may be necessary to use more interactive methods to reach all students. So, let's take a look at Desmos. So, when we go here, as my computer is loading, and we go to the Desmos site, we'll notice that at first glance, it can seem a bit overwhelming because you're looking at all of these very complex graphs and things such as that. And then when you look in the left hand corner and you see linear functions, linear systems, and middle school geometry, you're thinking, I'm not sure if there's anything there for me. So, first, let me tell you about a couple of things that are here. So, here we see the Math Tools tab. And when we see this tab, we actually see 4 different calculators that are accessible to students. There's also a tool just for geometry, and there's a test practice because for students who are going to utilize a calculator for testing situations, they may not even be familiar with the calculator to begin with, definitely not an online calculator. And just in case you're not sure, that this is a calculator that is allowable for our students to use for LEAP 2025. One of the other tabs we have for Desmos is the Resources tab. So there's a Getting Started tab that kind of orients you to a lot of the things about Desmos that make it special and unique. There's some special guidance of how to use this as a tool for distance learning. There's some things for Learn Desmos. So here are like little tutorials for you to learn about this program and how to use this digital tool. Accessibility. One of the things I love about Desmos is once you dive in and you start looking at some of these activities, you'll actually, when you look at the activity and gives you the background on it, it tells you all the accessibility tools that are built into it. So UDL is already taking care of that universal design for learning. There's some assessments, there's a blog, which I love because that's how you find out how others are using this tool. And then there's a newsletter for Desmos users. So what we want to look at right now is I want you to take some time and view this brief video that tells you a little bit more about Desmos and tells you why it is so much more than just a calculator.
Welcome to teacher.desmos.com. At Desmos, our mission is to help every student learn math and love learning math. With that in mind, we've assembled a collection of unique and engaging digital activities. Whether building informal language into academic vocabulary, exploring the relationship between graphs and the situations they represent, or investigating how parameters in an equation affect the graph, you'll find hundreds of activities designed to engage students in mathematically rich tasks in truly delightful ways. And not only that, with the built-in teacher dashboard, you can see student answers in real time, giving you valuable insight for helping individual students and facilitating class-wide discussions. With our featured activities, content bundles, and search features, we make it easy to find just what you're looking for. And best of all, everything you see at teacher.desmos.com is free. Seriously. So sign up, sign in, and start exploring today.
So, what more could we want than a resource that offers so many different things, but is also free? It's been free since it started, and it will probably more than likely always be free. And the neat thing about Desmos, if you've never used it, or I know some of you have attended some of the workshops with me where we've used some of the activities, but if you follow Twitter or any of the Facebook groups, but really this group really loves Twitter, you just type in Desmos and follow them on Twitter. You'll be amazed at all of the new friends you'll gain and all of the different activities and strategies and tips they can share with you about how to utilize this tool for your classroom. So, with that said, I'm going to sign in, and notice when I sign in, I'm just going to use my EBR address, my Google address, and we'll be ready to explore some things in Desmos in a minute. So we've taken a look at that overview. So what I want to do is I actually selected 4 activities, and we may not look at all 4 of them, but we'll look at a couple of them that give you an idea of what they could look like. So I selected 2 primary activities and 2 upper elementary activities. So I'm going to start with the Marble Slides 10 frame edition, making 10. So when you look at this particular Desmos activity, the tool in Desmos it uses is something called the marble slide. And so it's just that where they're little marbles. And so you're using them to answer different questions or to show answers. So this is one where students are asked to create a number sentence that makes 5. So here all that was needed is I just slid the marbles onto the 10 frame. And so we have our number sentence 5 plus 0 is equal to 5. And there are a couple organizational things that are here. We have the marbles here, the purple marble that shows where the marbles are housed. And then where the total is that we're supposed to make, there's a little star for kids to watch so they can see that. So let's go to a blank one. So this one we're asked to create a number sentence that makes 7. So we have our marbles here to choose from, and we have 2 10 frames that we can use to build our answer. And notice that as I slide the marbles onto the 10 frame, that over here where the star is giving me a count of my total. Notice that the number sentence isn't always written with the answer to the right. Just as our kids have to learn to see addition and subtraction, number sentences written in different orientations, they will see that as well on Desmos. And so notice I've got every time I add one to a different 10 frame. Now let's see what happens if, I just go overboard and I've got more than I need, but I was only supposed to create a number sentence that makes 7. And let's see, I'm going to click launch to check my answer. So the marbles launch, but I don't get that success symbol. Maybe I'll take one away and I try again. And there they are. And notice they go in a straight line when I have the correct answer. And I get the success notification, so that means I got it correctly. And so as you notice that students had 7 tasks to choose from through here. They're only working with making 10, so they go through all 7. And remember, if I'm the teacher and I'm watching the teacher dashboard, I actually can watch this in real time and watch as my students are working. So let's try another one of those Desmos activities. Let's try more, fewer, and the same. This one again is another primary activity. And so let's go here. So this one says to slide the same number of orange dots and purple dots in the circle. And so they've already placed some purple dots in the circle for me. So I'm a pretty good first grader, so I'm going to line them up with one-to-one correspondence. And let me see if I have this correct. So this one is correct. Now let's do another one, and I want to see, now we're going to do more than, if you notice some subtle things. It says I have 3 green dots. I want one more green dot than orange dots in the circle. Notice here at the top, and it was the same on the other slides, that the counter shows how many marbles I have in each of these columns. And so it says one more green dot. Then orange dots. Well, there are no green dots over here, so I can't find any more. But I can do this. Let's see if that's what it wanted me to do. And there we are. So they're not only working something that's a digital activity, they have to do some problem solving. So they have to think, I have to take the quantity that I'm given, and I have to find my answer or response based on that. So let's take a look at one of those activities that we would actually use with our intermediate level students. So for this one, students have a card sort. And so as you can see, I kind of started this one already. And so they're working with fractions between 0 and 1. And they're asked to sort their cards into 3 categories: larger than 1/2, equal to 1/2, and smaller than 1/2. And so this is where kids are actually applying those concepts of knowing about those fractional parts. And so card sort is another popular type activity that you'll find in Desmos, where students have different things they do using a card sort. And so having this is a very good formative assessment tool to see how well your students have applied those concepts. But then they have other activities such as this one, where they actually have the draw tools, and they have to place a given fraction on the number line in the correct spot. They do have those benchmarks, 0, 1, and 1/2. And notice as they go through, they have different fractions. Some are smaller than 1/2, some are greater than 1/2. And then there's some that are very close to 1/2 or very close to 1. So they really have to use what they know about their fraction sense to be able to find the correct answer. And let's look at one more. It's another card sort, but this one happens to be a fraction decimal card sort. And one of the things I love about this one is that they have to match the fraction, the decimal, and the model. So our students who need to rely on some of those concrete pictorial things, they still have that picture. So they have that to relate to. And so they're looking for the match of all 3. So they're putting those pieces together. This is the same type of thing, but now they're rounding repeating decimals to the nearest thousandths place. Same thing with this one. So notice there are only 3 activities in this one because the work is a little bit more difficult. So students are having to do more, but it really does give you an example of the types of activities that students could have to complete using a digital component. Well, that's great. The kids are having fun. I have some nice standards aligned, research aligned activities for my kids to use. How can I take this up a notch and make it a tool that I can use to enhance that discourse or discussion in my classroom? Remember in the opening video, it talked about the activity dashboard. This is what I see as the teacher, and I can see all of my students, what they've done, and based on a given task that I've assigned, I can see what they've done on each of those activities. Well, Desmos has this neat capability where you can use snapshots. They refer to something about amping up the discourse and using it as a tool to promote that in your classroom. And I want to share with you just how you can do that using Desmos. So let's go back to my Desmos home screen. And so I have several activities that I've launched with different teachers and with some students as well. So we have some work to choose from. So I'm going to go to the what fraction am I task. And so for this task, students are given words that like a riddle that describes a fraction or fractions, and they have to make a representation of it. Notice when I first open this activity, because I'm signed in as the teacher, I get the code because this activity is still active. So I still could assign this code to students using either a link, which is my preference, or students could actually go to student.desmos.com and type in a given code. So you take your pick as which one works for you. So as you take a look, you can see that I have like 39 students or so who have engaged in this particular what fraction am I task. And when I take a look at this task, I can see how far they got with all of the activities that were included here. And I can see that some got a little bit further along than others. So probably as the teacher, I want to look at one of the ones that was not the beginning task, but maybe one that occurred a little bit later and see, well, how did my students do on this particular task? So let's see what the challenge number 5 was. So they were told that their 7 squares are shaded red. What fraction am I? So if I take a look at that one and I see of the students who responded to that one, I see that this one was one that was not a very big challenge for most of the students. So I have an idea of how they were able to perform on that one. But let's look at challenge 6. Challenge 6 said 2 full squares and a half of another square is shaded. What fraction am I? So as I go in and I look at the students' work, I can see which students got their answer correct, which students did not, and I can see the different ways that students chose maybe to represent this fraction. So if I go here, this little camera allows me to take a picture of a student response. Remember to include some correct and some incorrect responses. And then when I go here to snapshots, these are all the pictures that I've taken of different challenges. And so all of my snapshots will be housed here on the left-hand side. And so as you can see, I've staged some of them already onto a screen so that I can look at them and actually explore student work. Now, some of you have attended previous sessions before when I talked about the 5 practices for orchestrating productive discourse in the math classroom. Well, as part of the 5 practices, after students have responded to their work, as the teacher, you are selecting which students will present, you're sequencing that work so that you can make those connections. Well, now I can do that selecting, sequencing, and connecting in a digital platform. So I'm actually going to look at one of the other tasks here. And so I'm going to go down here to a screen and I'm going to choose these pieces of student work that were on the same task. And these are the ones that I actually want to present to students so we can think about the challenge that was given. We can see how different students answered that response. Different students, we have 3 different students who got it correct. And they actually had 3 different representations. But I can see that these 2 representations, and actually probably I wasn't paying very close attention, I would put these 2 next to each other so they could see those side by side and think about what's the same, what's the difference about those 2 fractions, and then go back and look at the task and see how is it different? How does it represent the fraction that was described in that riddle? But again, here's a tool to take students' digital work that they complete and use it as a tool to foster that discourse and discussion in the classroom. So, as I said, there are lots of layers to this tool, lots of things that you'll find that you'll be able to utilize in your classroom. So that was just a quick look at Desmos and look at some of the rich activities that you can engage in and a deeper look at how you can use that teacher dashboard and that snapshot features to foster discussion and discourse in your classroom. So as we get ready to wrap up today's presentation, I want to think about what are some strategies you can use for encouraging student engagement. Obviously, you want to establish a learning environment that supports active and collaborative learning. Collaboration with others, especially to solve problems or learn challenging content, allows students to develop and simulate skills that they'll use in real world contexts. Students should be engaged in activities that allow them to write about mathematics, discuss mathematics, and model mathematical situations. We want to plan and design activities that allow students to have multiple entry points, thus encouraging access for all, and allow students to make connections, form relationships between concepts, and make choices. So I definitely want to thank you for joining me in fostering student engagement, diving into Desmos. I hope this has piqued your interest and that you're eager to start using Desmos as a tool in your classroom. And remember, you will have a link in the resources section to a page of a variety of activities for elementary students, pre-K through sixth grade, that you can utilize that are already made and already curated for Desmos. So thank you and enjoy your day.